Yeah, I did anything that involved a ball. That was just kind of like my thing. Always has been, always probably will be. I enjoyed being around people, so sports gave me connection to people. I enjoyed competing. Sports gave me that. I don't remember. I'm in a spot now. This is the first time since I was probably 4 years old in a winter season where I'm not on a basketball team or a part of a team, and like it's surreal and different and seeing things through a different scope of life. So like, but grew up over in the Shoals in Lexington, Alabama, and super proud to be from there. It was an awesome place to grow up. I was surrounded by great people and teachers and just support and all the way around. Like I so many times, and since I've moved around and been other places, obviously like I'll find myself like comparing what I went through versus what kids went through, and like I think there's some elements, particularly in the bigger cities, where like, oh, I would have liked to experience this or that, but overall, like I can't imagine coming up anywhere else any other way. It just was like perfect for me, and I got so many cool experiences from it. I got to be part of like the small town that you see on the movies when the sports teams play and the town shuts down, and like I got to be a part of those and got to see it, and like that was awesome for me. And so really good education through that school, and proud to be from there. And that was, I was school and ball. That was my life. And another thing that I probably wouldn't have any other way. I think I maybe, like, as I've gotten older, wish I would have ventured into a few more interests just like for future me. But in the moment, like if I wasn't on the baseball field, I was on a basketball court. If I wasn't on the basketball court, I was on the football field. If I was on the football field, I was running just because I like to run, or riding bikes, or doing something in some athletic realm.
That's it, man. I was always jealous of kind of the small town kids that had their own stadiums. I grew up in Huntsville, man. We shared a stadium with 3 or 4 other schools, so having that home field, man, nothing like it. So I was always jealous of
Yeah,
that.
there are things like that. Like, and I didn't realize until I moved to Huntsville how fortunate I was to, like, I mean, obviously Huntsville's a phenomenal city and place to live, and there's so many people, but like to be in that community setting it's unique, it's different. And like Huntsville doesn't just have as much I mean, you got people that support the schools and do, but like it's something when you have people that don't have kids or any family at the game. They're just there because they live up the road and they've supported Lexington for 40 years, and they don't even know you, but they're there watching you play, and they probably got an opinion about you, and whatever. So there are things like that I wish I would have taken for granted more when I was going through it, because then after seeing the other was like, oh, there are huge benefits to that. Like, I mean, I conversely, when I was younger, probably wanted to play in Milton Frank, and like, man, that'd be awesome to be in the big stadium and the turf and all that. But then I hear people that went through your experience be like, well, I wanted all the other, like I wanted to walk into the breakfast joint and like some guy just pick up the bill because like, hey, good game last night. Like that was the kind of stuff I got versus we don't get to choose our upbringing, but I was thrilled to get to be a part of mine.
That sounds like a great childhood, man. That's awesome. So who was your probably most influential either teacher or coach coming up?
Oof, man. To pick one would be like a disservice. So I was like really fortunate too. I grew up with all of, like, I mean, pretty much our entire high school coaching staff of like all sports had kids like my age, a year older than me. So like my entire like youth childhood, I was coached by like varsity coaches all the time. So like I mean, we had some dads that helped out. And I mean, there's a few of those that I might put on that list. A guy, Mickey Thompson, that was just like one of our youth league coaches. My dad coached me some. He and I will first tell you wasn't the best coach, but he was just out there serving and doing and trying to help. So there's several guys in that, but like, I mean, like our football coaches had kids my age. Our head basketball coach son was a year older than me. We grew up together. So like I was coached by the same guys pretty much my entire life. And like, they were phenomenal men and just like great leaders. And they, I realized when I started coaching how fortunate I was to have the ones that I had. And I mean, it was, I'm going to throw some names, and if I miss any, I'm sorry, but like Mark Toner was one, Randy Ratliff, Randy Stutz, Ricky Putman, Tony Shirley. Like there's a laundry list of guys that I could just keep rolling on that were investing in me from the time I was like 4 or 5, and got to do it all the way until I was a, senior. And then a lot of them in my first job, I got to work with. So it's just like, I was so fortunately surrounded by like great coaches. Like I cheated my way through all that. I was so fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, man, it's amazing when you look back on your journey. Like my son's doing his signing next week, and we're looking at like all the coaches that have impacted him over the years. It's amazing, man. It's really,
Yeah,
really fortunate.
it is. And like, I think all of us, whatever you do, you probably at times can take it for granted. You hear the saying about like a great coach can impact a life, and how many people coaches impact, and educators. And like, you don't really realize it until you do start kind of counting it up, and you're like, holy smokes. I mean, just for myself, I mean, there are some teachers I had in school that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't just for them. And so, but the coaching side, like I was so spoiled in that regard. There were so many that were great that like, I mean, I've watched big schools play and go like, man, my basketball coach at 2A Lexington High School would have coached circles around these guys that have these big time jobs, but they loved where they were. They loved where they lived. They weren't like, I played for a bunch of coaches who like never were like trying to climb the ladder. They just like were happy where they were. Most of them have retired or will retire at Lexington, like career coaches. That just a surreal, like kind of once in a lifetime deal that just, I was fortunate enough to go through the wave while they were there, and had kids around, their kids were around me. So I had so many good coaches. I can't even name them all.
That's awesome, man. So how did you become a coach yourself? How'd you get into it?
I mean, I just knew, ironically, I kind of wanted to be a teacher before I wanted to be a coach. Particularly was drawn to the world of special education and working with children with special needs. And like, I knew I loved sports, and that would probably be a part of it, but I actually kind of started backwards. And then once I started coaching, just like that became like a labor of love, and just the seeing the improvements in people, and being able to invest and watch people go on their journeys and grow, like that was, and I was getting to do it, on a football field, or I've coached football, basketball, baseball. I've coached softball. I've coached track. Like I've just kind of done it all. Basketball has always kind of been the one, but I graduated high school in May and was substitute teaching and volunteer or whatever, like not student coaching, because I was graduated, but I was like a volunteer coach at Lexington, my alma mater, the August after I graduated school. Like I knew I wanted to do it. If I even remember right, I think like spring training for football, like the spring I graduated, I was kind of out there like trying to, sit in coaches meetings and just listen and learn. And because I knew that's what I wanted to do in some capacity. So, and then just like the guys I worked for then at that point took my interest and my passion for it just like went through the roof. And like Derek Johnston, I worked for at Lexington in basketball. And he was just like, when I watched him work, I was like, man, that's what I want to do. Like he worked his tail off, and would be exhausted and would do all that. And I'd be, that's how I want to wear myself out, doing it the way he did it. And so another one of those is like coaches' interest. That was the guys I worked for that I'd also played for that, helped me realize that that's what I wanted to be doing. So, and then along the way of continued to cross paths with so many that just keep my interest in it or help me find new loves inside of it. So it's just like a nonstop world of influence.
That's it, man. That's what coach is all about. That's what it gets in your blood for sure. And you started way earlier than me. That's great. So
yeah, it was like, I mean, I knew immediately I wanted to do it from like 14, 15, 16 years old. I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I just was like, best way to do it is just to start. Like I can remember substitute teaching in classes like in September, a year removed, against like guys that I'd like played football against. And I'm up in front of the class, like trying to get them to calm down, and like just a wild entry point. But that's I wanted to know if it's really what I wanted to do, and I figured no way to figure that out than to jump in and see if it works.
That's
and I was
the best
like,
way to do it.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, and they're going to pay me to do this. This is awesome. So anyways, yeah, that was kind of the starting point, and it's kept going ever since then.
That's it, man. So you're kind of known as a great player development guy in the basketball world. So let me ask you got a kid, he's never played ever. Where do you start with him? How do you develop a kid that's never played ever?
Uh, well, I think multiple, and I get super into like philosophy on the training side. Like I think one would be like where they are, the youth, or they, a middle school kid, high school kid. Like there are some trades that, but at the beginning, like, man, you got to, in anything, crawl before you walk. Like I would probably start at like, hey, let's go walk out on the court and let's just like learn the space. Like you're not going to be able to be comfortable in this environment and learn in this environment until you know what the free throw line is, or what. I mean, I think the world of like, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Like you almost have to go to literal ground zero and go like, all right, here's, we're on the ground level. Like the basket's 10 foot, the floor is 94 feet by 50 feet, like, and literally start from scratch and just go along the way. And I think it's something, since I've moved in more of the private player development side, that's something like I've actually even tried to learn how to encourage for people, is like, hey, even the really good ones are learning. Like we're all learning and growing. Like just where you're growing from may be way different, and that's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. Like you're never so far behind you can't catch up. You'll just never actually catch up. Like and that's it. Once you figure out that you'll never get there, that's when it gets like really fun, because you're like, man, I'm just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. But I mean, like I'll quote one of my high school coaches. Randy Ratliff was a football coach, and like we were having a rough night, and he walked in the field house at halftime and held up a football and said, guys, this is a football. Like we're so far lost right now. I just want to remind you that this is the ball. Like that's, and I would almost have like that moment, like, hey, let's just start here. This is the basketball. It's, if you're a male, it's 29.5 inches, and it's this and it's that. And like start to learn, like you can't learn until you know. And so let's know something and then move forward.
Well, I think some people, especially when they've been in the business for a long time, they forget all the little things that they just naturally know. And you have a kid that's never even stepped on the court, man. That's huge. I've always wondered, how tall is that thing?
Yeah, and so it's something that I've had to learn over the past couple of months, and I think always will. And moving from the world of being a high school, college coach, wherever I've been, to doing the training and the player development side. There are times in like camps or in clinics where, someone walks in for the first time, I haven't met them, and I forget, like when I was a high school coach, everyone spoke the same language as me. Like when I was the head coach, I put the language in that I wanted to be spoken, and we spoke it. So if we said we're going to work on, stride, stop, outside hand finishes, everybody knew, like, bam, that's where we're going. When you get into this world, you're talking about people that it's a melting pot of some people know this, some know that. And I have had to learn that, like, not everyone does know what I know. And so how do you communicate effectively to the ones that do, but also the ones that don't, and also the ones who are ahead of that, and also the ones who are behind that? It's like this, it's this entire new philosophy that I've had to like undergo in my entire like scope of teaching, that has been challenging at times, and probably even rewarding, I think, in the sense of, even as I think back to coaching teams, I'm like, man, I probably did some of those kids a disservice, because they may not have connected with that. I might just like have assumed they knew or something. And so it's hard sometimes. You get going and then you look back and go, oh, that like, I've had so many. The most recent moment last weekend was doing a youth clinic, and said something about going to we were partner shooting, and about one partner getting the rebound. And I had a kid raise their hand and go, hey, what's a rebound? And I was like, that's a fair question. Like, if you didn't know that, like, I can't imagine what you would think I was talking about.
Yeah.
So then it was like a great aha moment for me of like, hey, how many of you other guys, and these were, younger kids, but like there were 2 or 3 more that were like, oh, okay, I got it now. And I was like, man, how enlightening it was for this kid to admit that, like, we all just assume everybody knows what a rebound is, but that kid didn't. And I'd asked him to do it and then had to like think back and explain a rebound. And I haven't done that ever. I don't know. So that, like, since I was coaching like a fourth, so that's been it's been fun to kind of go through some of those experiences.
That's it. I was coaching a 10U football team one time, and it was our 6th game of the year. And this kid turns to me before the game and says, "Coach, am I the quarterback?" I'm like, "No, No, sir. We have not taught you anything. Apparently, my bad.
Thankfully, you are not. Like, it would be a problem if you was. I mean,
You're what we call an offensive lineman. So, I mean, it's just that you don't know what these kids don't know. So it's good to get on their level, man. That's cool.
it
So
is. No, it's and it makes you a better teacher. Like when you realize that, I think, like, I think too many teachers get caught in the ego of like, you should know what I know. Like, no, your job is to teach, and that means to the learner, regardless of where they are. And like, if that means teaching what a rebound is, that's your job that day. And so I've embraced that a lot more and learned to seek out more of those opportunities instead of just trying to like, hey, what can we do next? What do you guys know that don't know that we have done, like, or that we have skimmed over? Like, what did we miss? Let's go back and clean that up. So, but yeah, that's an ever evolving, ever changing process.
yeah, that's it. It makes it an interesting time every time. So kind of contrast that with the kid that maybe he's on the high school team and he just can't quite crack the starting lineup. How do you work with a kid like that?
Yeah, I think, well, like, and I've had this conversation recently with families is like, this sport's really, in all sports, I'll say, but like, I'll just use basketball. I'll speak just in terms of basketball so I don't cross any lines. Like, this is a hard sport that does a lot of this. So like, throughout a game, throughout a season, throughout a career, throughout whatever, like, it's constant up and down. And like, you have to know that going into it. One, so like when people start getting a little like, oh, I want to get to this point, like, scratch, like, and it sounds cliche, but I'm like, scratch that goal and just like make it the goal that I'm going to get better today. I need to, I need to improve my shot. I need to improve my handle. I need to whatever, like, and then the other, like, if they were just really, I'd be like, all right, well, produce. Like, that's the other, like, get in the game and produce. Like, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of coaches. I've met what I feel like are really good ones. I've met what I feel like are really bad ones, but I know that none of them would not play a kid that was making the right play over and over again. Like, I've never watched a team play and really been like, man, when that kid goes in, he does everything right and they don't play him. Like, there's always something. So like, find what that something is and go attack it. Go, like, it's the basketball. There's so many things in basketball. Like, I use that term of like, make the right play, like, just make a bunch of right plays. Just do that. Like, is the right play to be in a stance and be talking to your teammate when you're playing defense? Do that, like, all the time. Is it just to catch the ball and pass it? Just do, like, whatever's right, do that. And the rest, like, will take care of itself. And because then you get into like, well, what's your goal in this? Like, is your goal to be a varsity starter? If that's the case, like, you're probably going to feel pretty empty in this thing, because you're going to get there and then it's going to be really hard and you're going to be like, oh, I accomplished my goal. Well, now you got to produce. Like, now you're in a starting lineup, like, you're expected to really contribute. And like, so I try to always pull the curtain back on like, well, what do you really want? Like, do you just really want to be a starter? Because like, that to me in my world is not like a great tangible, like, let's attack that. Like, I've had people that have reached out and wanted to work, that they kind of share that's their goal and that's their drive, and we just don't align and we don't work together. Like, it's not, I don't feel like I want to sell to people like, hey, I want to help you be a starter. No, I want to help you fall in love with the game, one, and then two, fall in love with the process of getting better, and then three, get into the world where you can handle the ups and the downs and the good and the bad. And like the fact that, like, basketball is a failure sport. Like, the best in the world to do the things they do fail more than they accomplish. Shooting, all those things, like, percentage wise, they miss more than they make. So you have to, like, I think you have to get into like this entire philosophy with people of like, just do it this way, and like, you will get the things you want. So, not for everybody, not everybody's belief, but it is mine.
Yeah, that's it. Kind of related. What would you say is kind of the percentage of how important the mental, psychological aspect of basketball is?
Man, as someone who is like really taken this year to try to study that and think through that, probably more than I ever have, it's probably more than I even know still. I think because there's just so, like, especially as you break down games, like, there's so many plays inside of the play, and you can, like, you can get yourself like in a rabbit hole if you start chasing, and then like it's there's pressure on everything. There's so much for these kids to navigate, and like sports in general now, and just like athletes in general now, just having to navigate the landscape of like, there's always a camera on you, and there's always somebody typing or tweeting about you or this or that. Like, I don't think people realize how hard that is for these guys. Like, it all sounds great and whatever, but like, that's pressure to know. Like, I can't relate to that as a player. I was thankful to kind of get through right before all the cell phones and all that really took off. So like, I can't relate. And I've talked to kids that like really struggle with that part of it. And like, so it's it's a huge piece of it. And I think probably more than I even know, more than I've even come to know, and more than most would recognize, because you get so caught in like, oh, it's a skill game. You got to shoot and dribble and pass. Well, like, no, you got to be able to think. And then on top of that, you got to be able to make decisions over and over and over and over and over again, whether you're making good ones or bad ones. Like, well, all right, I might have read that closeout right and drove when I was supposed to, but now I got to decide who to pass it to and how to pass it. And like, there's just decision after decision, and that's taxing for players. It's hard. Yeah. And I think I look back myself as a high school, like I was not good at helping kids navigate that as I should have been. Like, there's times that I look back on and I'm like, man, he was really struggling, and I didn't see that. And I just saw it as like a production thing, not like he needed to talk about his headspace or something. He needed whatever. Like, so I think it's a massive part of it, because there's a ton of just like, anytime you're making decisions, you got the chance to make the wrong one. And when you can make the wrong one, there's stress that comes with that. And like, it's a tough deal.
For sure, man. Yeah, I've seen it as well. And something we've been going and talking to these college coaches, they said the mental side, if you don't have it, you could be a freak. Some of the freaks get through, but not many of them at that next level.
Like I think as you start talking about doing that and like your trajectory in the sport, like if you're wanting to move at any level, I don't care if you're a middle school player wanting to become a high school player, whatever, like you've got to be a little bit of a psycho. Like the guys that are good at it are a little bit crazy. And because like the amount of time and effort and frustration you have to overcome, and like the mental hoops you have to jump through, like you got to be a little crazy to do it. Yeah. Like it's not, being in a gym by yourself or with one person, shooting 1,000 shots, 750 shots. And that's not easy, and it's not glamorous, and it's not fun. And it's really easy to get bored. Like working on ball handling, there's like you have to be a crazy person to like want to walk in the gym and like pound a ball into the floor thousands of times just to get better at it. When like that ball bounces every time you drop it, it's coming back to you. But you go find these intricacies of small things that you've got to improve about it. And like, it's I don't know. I've started to worry about my own sanity in it, as I've figured out that the good ones are crazy people. But it's a fun thing to be obsessed with and kind of craze over if it's for you. But like, that's like the whole deal. I think when you start talking to people about this sport, like you better be a little crazy to be able to do it. I mean, just like go watch a high school game and like let yourself feel the emotion and the up and down of it. It's like a roller coaster. I mean, it's games of runs, and it's good, then it's bad, then it's not, then you're making shots, then you are like, and it's just like, it's so unpredictable and crazy, and it's hard to navigate.
For sure, man. Yeah, you'll definitely see that. Go check out a game this year, and you'll see. You can feel it. You don't even have to see it. You can feel it out there. So
and inevitably, like you're going. To me, basketball is like hard. I'm just talking about like game pressure. It's so unique, and like as a player, you are as exposed to the audience and as close to the audience and as visible as you are in anything. And like, when you fail, everyone sees that and sees your face and your reaction and all that. And like, I don't know a player that I've ever met that's tried to miss a shot. Like, and so like you're missing shots, or you're in a slump, like you're inevitably going to have bad times. And when it happens, like it's hard. It's the mental aspect for players now. Like I hate that I wasn't as open to it earlier in my career as I am now, because I've realized how big of a deal it is.
Yeah, so you kind of been studying up on that type of deal. What were some tips for some kind of the middle side for the kids?
Phew, man. The line that I've caught myself using the most lately is that the most important shot's the next one.
Yeah,
I mean, like you can do whatever. I don't care if you make it, miss it. You made the game winning shot in the state championship like your junior year. Guess what? Game one of your senior year, nobody cares anymore.
yeah,
Like it's they may still talk about it or whatever, but it helps you none. So like whatever your last shot was, if you're in a training session and you've airballed 6 in a row and like, all right, the most important shot's the next one. And I think like you almost have to, as a player, I wish that I would have come to grips with this earlier, and maybe this will help somebody. Is like you come to grips with the fact that there's going to be failure. You have to like really accept that, man, I'm gonna not win everything. I'm going like, and I've got to know that and be able to stay level-headed and be able to like, I think something that I always was into was like body language and being a good teammate. But I think a lot of times I caught myself preaching it just because like it was the thing that looked good, or like, it made our program look strong, or what, like, man, those guys are really into it. And I believe that, but I didn't realize like the effect that really had. Like, I mean, even scientifically, like the way that just high fives generate, camaraderie in teams, and being able to like communicate with a teammate on like, hey man, all good, like I got you. How like actually statistically important that is for teams and groups and really any capacity. So like, understanding that everybody's going to go through struggles, that everybody's learning and growing. And like in basketball, it's the ultimate, like the sport at every level is a tournament sport. So everything you do is to get to the end of the year. So like for players, it's like, quit getting caught in like, oh, you scored 20 in the first game of the year. Awesome. You played 30 seconds in the first game of the year. Awesome. You're trying to get to the post. Like you're just building everything to a 1-game season. Like that's all the sport is. Even at like, most youth leagues now have some kind of tournament at the end where you get seeded and you play. So like the sport is a tournament sport. And so like use your time, learn, grow, like understand that you don't know what you don't know. I think you said that earlier. I think that's an important thing for players to like do and go like, hey, I don't know everything. And I'm going to every game practice. I'm going to encounter a situation I've never encountered before. And like, can I learn from it? And if not, it's like, it's the ultimate. I love asking kids like, what'd you learn at school today? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, why'd you go then? Like, man, how you not know what you learned? Like basketball, same thing. Like go into the gym and learn something every day. Like I try to do it. I leave drills sometimes that I've ran for 10 years and I'm like, oh, that was a little thing that we could tweak about that might make it better, or make it make more sense, or some alteration to it. So like, I just think like opening yourself to that all is super helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I give my son one piece of advice when he goes to practice. Hey, be coachable. Be coachable, man. Be open to whatever they're going to teach you today. Because don't think that I already know all this, man. You are 17 years old and barely know what the world's about. Man, be a sponge, man. Soak it in.
And I'm trying to learn that as a 30-year-old. I still almost 31. Like I'm still trying to realize now that I don't know anything, and like, and trying to have that humility and that, just that attitude into all of it. Like I in the past few months have just found myself like being a sponge and like asking people some of the most basic questions about, like going to some of my mentors and some of my coaching friends, or friends that are in business world or leadership, and just like asking them the most simple questions that like 3 years ago I'd have been like, no, I'll never ask anybody that. There's no reason to now allow myself to do it, to try to learn and grow. And like, I think I can talk through all that from the player side, because like I'm really doing it for myself right now. And I think at some level we all should be. So it's really easy to, for me to counsel players on that, because I'm trying to live that as well.
Hey, man, the older I get, the more I don't know. So
oh man,
yeah.
It almost starts getting scary for me. I'm like, gosh, I was just not an intelligent person yesterday, or 6 months ago, or whatever. Like the little that I knew about what I thought I knew is just astounding.
Yeah, when I graduated college, man, I knew it all. Then I look back like that. I got to go apologize to people I used to train back in the day. I'm sorry, man. I thought I knew. I didn't.
You could go talk. 18-year-old Dylan Bunnell is hanging out in the coaching office at Lexington, drawing plays on a whiteboard, going like, "I'm going to win a national championship or NBA champ because of this play." Like,
this is the one.
Like, this is the thing that's going to do it, not knowing anything. It's on. I almost feel bad for kids I coached in the past. I'm like, you got such a bad product of me.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, that's the journey, and that's part of it. And I have like joked with guys in the past, like that, continue to stay in touch with. I'll be like, "Oh, I love that you're doing." I'm like, "Yeah, I wish I would have knew that when you came through. Like, I could have helped you way more." But
yeah,
we live and we learn. We all do.
My bad, guys. My bad. I know now. I know now. That's all
I'm better now. Like when your kids come through, I'll be rolling on this. Like, don't worry. Give me about 20 more years and we got this.
Yeah. So, man, you're always open to learning new things. You've kind of started something new that you're doing. Kind of tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I stepped out of coaching in teams, working in the schools, and now I entered just the training player development space full time, and I'm fortunate enough to get hired. It's the Priceville Event Center. It's in Priceville. It's actually a Decatur address. It's right off the interstate. If you're heading down 65 at the Decatur exit, you can see a big, beautiful building that I get to host everything out of here, and running camps and clinics and doing some individual and group trainings, and soon to be rolling into the world of some mentorship type stuff that do. So just like trying to find a new world to stay busy in it, and then watching as much basketball as I can, and trying to like just stay up to it a little bit, and search through kind of myself and my thoughts and what I like. But I've loved this space. Has always been fascinating to me. Even when coaching teams, I just enjoyed the PD side of the running a program. I enjoyed watching players from year to year get better, and looking back when they finished and going, "Oh, that was awesome to see their journey." And so now, like, that's all I'm worried about. I'm no longer like I no longer am looking at a scoreboard judging myself. I like get to just take these guys and work with guys, girls, work with them, grow with them, try to mentor them a little along the way. And the thing that I'm trying to do that's hopefully a little unique, and I hope that, and I is having relationships with all these high school coaches, is particularly with my older players. I'm trying to tailor the skill side to what they do. So like, instead of, I'm not, I don't believe anything is my way. I think there's a right way of doing things, but also like other school, like if a kid comes to me and plays for a particular school that maybe doesn't believe in or do something a certain way, like I'm not going to waste their time doing, because my scope is trying to provide them the best experience where they're at. And then if they have aspirations moving forward, like, yeah, certainly we can start thinking about long-term goals. But like right now, your focus, like some older high school players that maybe have aspirations of playing in college, like that's awesome. That's great. I'm glad you have those goals. Those take things, but like your goal right now should be like to have a great practice today, and then be able to, play well tomorrow night, and then be able to recover well, and be able to like learn from that, and continue to stack days on top of each other. And so trying to like help players with that in their unique situation, because everybody's in a different deal. Everybody has a different role, playing for a different team that plays a different way. And like, for me to just go, there's a cookie cutter way of doing this, I think would be wrong. And I think so trying to meet with like where the player is, where they're going, and what's going to help them in their situation currently, which is a little different, but I'm thankful to have relationships with those school coaches, and like call them up and go, "Hey, Johnny's been wanting to come see me. Give me your thoughts on him. Tell me about how you guys play. Like, what does he need to improve on?" Like, I almost want to be an extension of a school coaching staff, and then feel like I'm a asset more than I feel at times the rift between coaches and trainers is like, well, he's teaching him all this stuff that he don't need and whatever. And like the high school coach wants this, and his trainer, mentor, AAU coach, or somebody wants this. Like, why can't we all just like align on the same? Like, why can't we all go, all right, we're in this for this kid and he needs this. You can provide that. You can provide that. You can provide that. Go. And like, Like, I don't think that should be so difficult. And it's not been like, every single high school coach I've worked with has been like super receptive and thankful. And like, I've had school coaches since I've started doing this brought me into their gym to like work with their team. And I'm, man,
Nice.
which I appreciate the, I don't know, lack of ego of that. I think, to as a coach, like I don't know if I would have been able to do that, like allow somebody else to come in,
Yeah.
and not do your job, but like do things for, and most of them have talked about how like nice it is to have a different voice saying the same things. And like, it helps. It's probably the thing, like, where there's a ton of dads, and my dad, I think, was one that like coached that, like, man, you probably know everything you're talking about, talking to your kid, but like your kid just needs to hear it from somebody else. He hears your voice all the time. Like, he hears you tell him how to do the dishes and how to wash the car and how to cut the grass and how to this and how to that and whatever. We're saying the same thing, but for some reason from that different voice, it just means a little bit more, or it just makes it resonate a little more. And so like, I didn't realize how much of a need for that was, but it's been something that like this fall and this summer, I did a little bit of and hope to continue doing moving forward. Obviously teams are in season now, so I just get to go around and watch them play now.
That's great, man. So if someone's listening right now and they want to get in touch with you, what's the best place to follow up with you?
I think the easiest, like the world of connectivity of social media is the easiest. You can email me. It's dpbhoops@gmail.com. Super receptive there. Track me down on the socials. And I just like having conversation. Like I've had people throughout, from parents to coaches to like people reach out and like want to talk basketball. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk. Or like, philosophy or training or psychology of the sport or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think I admitted earlier, I don't know a whole lot, but I like talking about it. And I don't ever know what conversation might lead to learning something, or, but obviously if there's a side where, someone feels like I can help them, then I want to figure out how to do that. But even if it's just to call and talk hoops or talk life or talk anything, like I want to be accessible to people and be a resource. And so you can track me down any way that you need to.
Cool. Yeah, I'll link that in show notes for everybody, so they can reach out to you on social and your email and all that good stuff. So, hey, if you're listening right now, why don't you share this episode? Dylan's doing some cool stuff out there. Maybe there's someone out there that you can help by connecting them to Dylan. There's things he's doing out there, helping kids develop. Man, it's so important. It gives them, it's beyond the court, what he's doing. It goes way beyond that. Give his kids confidence and all that. And maybe go out and spread some positivity that way, just sharing this episode. Hey, Dylan, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been great.
Dude, thanks for having me. Thanks for what you do. Anytime we can talk about anything positivity, that's a no-brainer for me. So we're putting good content in the world, and I appreciate you providing the platform for it to happen.
Yes, sir. Keep up the good work. Hey, everybody, go out and spread some positivity this week. We'll see you next time.